Hard refresh.
Shall we get started?
Yeah, so we're going to do Accessibility 101 today. And we're doing it, and I'll talk about why it's super important, but we're going way back to the alt attribute. This is probably the first accessible thing I ever did without even realizing I was doing it for accessibility.
Right.
So I think the first time I noticed an alt attribute was when images didn't load. My internet was not working, and so I saw all the text there.
Right.
So actually I got a slide up about the alt attribute. And it is in WCAG. It's number 1, non-text content, understanding success criterion 1.1.1.
So that's one thing I want to call out. SC stands for success criteria.
Yeah, and this comes from the WCAG guidelines. This has probably been in every single one of the WCAG guidelines, which are the the web content accessibility guidelines. So basically what this is an attribute in your code that you're writing. It goes on the image tag. So you normally would write the source of the image, where's the file coming from.
Right.
And then you would also write some kind of description for the image directly in your code.
So one of the things that we'll talk about, and not because I know this and you know this, and we've dealt with a lot of this too as well, that there are different ways to treat the alt attribute based on the context of the image. I know we're going to get into a little bit of that later. Yeah. But the first one you have here about keeping it blank, that was something we learned after we were really digging into accessibility. We're like, all images got to have alt attributes. They got to have alt attributes. Until you realize when you're reading through it, and it reads the image and it reads the alt attribute, and then maybe the image has a text descriptor that's on the page.
Right.
That would be like, oh, just copy and paste it. And that's something you do in CMSs a lot. We're like, oh, this is you got an aggregate list, right? And this is pulling from the title of the node. Let me just put that title into the alt attribute. And all of a sudden you see product name, image, product name, and it just sounds weird.
So to a screen reader, it's redundant. So those are the two reasons you would want to keep your alt attribute blank, is when it's decorative. So, there's no real
So let's talk about, all right. So what is a decorative image then? What would be an image that doesn't have a real contextual purpose for a website?
So I'm not a content editor. I'm a programmer. For me, most images are decorative. Even the people smiling and the picture of the food. This is all decorative. but
sacrilege.
Yeah, it is
sacrilege. Well, let's do a real world example.
Sure.
So sub pages for products.
Okay.
Or sub pages for a product section or recipe section usually has a really nice hero image up top.
Yep.
It says recipes on it, and then you've got your list of recipes.
Okay.
That image up top in the hero is totally redundant. It doesn't mean anything. It's
maybe
nice to have. It's visually nice to say, oh, I'm on the recipes section. I read that.
Right.
And it reinforces, and it's there for taste appeal or in this for recipe aggregate.
Yeah.
But for all intents and purposes, not needed.
Right.
It's purely visual. That's all that counts.
If you had like fancy image borders or like an image divider or something like that.
What about icons?
Well, icons we'll get into.
Okay.
So there are some
jumping
reasons.
ahead.
Yeah. So here's an image. I have an image right here. This is right from one of our sites. This comes from the Entenmann's website that we did, and let's see if I can get this.
There you go. Oh, you clicked the wrong thing.
So here's what your alt attribute looks like.
So this is funny. Nick's learned his lesson and he's not live coding now. So this is canned. Okay.
It's a presentation. Okay. So you were talking about writing alt attributes in context. So I've got a slide here that it kind of illustrates that how the alt attribute for the same image can change based on the context of the page.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say we've got a page called Fictional Characters.
Okay.
And we've got an image of C-3PO and R2-D2 from Star Wars, right? So right here, this alt attribute, because the page is called fictional characters, this is a page about, in general, fictional characters.
Can I guess what it would be?
Yeah, what would you say that?
So this would probably say C-3PO and R2-D2 from Star Wars, Tatooine scene or something like that.
Exactly. And so you seeing it, you would know that who those characters were because you've seen Star Wars.
And if you don't, you shouldn't be watching this.
Yes, turn this off. But if let's say you're using a screen reader, you're going to rely on the alt attribute to tell you who those characters are and what that image is.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. So next one is, let's say it's an article about fictional planets, and we've got the same image.
Okay. So
what's the name of this planet?
Well, this would probably be Tatooine.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the essence of it is that it's not so much important that the character's there. It's the fact that landscape is Tatooine. So now,
got it.
The alt attribute here would change.
I just want to make a comment that like doing a Star Wars reference when you're a Star Trek guy.
Yeah.
That's good. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Peace and love.
Okay.
What is it?
What?
The bumper stickers.
The coexist.
The coexist.
You should make a coexist bumper sticker with like Star Wars and Star Trek and Babylon 5.
I think that exists.
That would be great. Exactly. We got to find that. Caitlin, find that.
Okay.
So we got another one. Golden colored characters.
Okay, so then this would be. Oh, so now would this just be?
Just 3PO.
Would it be just C-3PO with his friend or something like that?
Right, exactly. So this bugs me about some CMSs, for example, like in Drupal, we've got a media library, and when you add an image to the media library, you're assuming that it's going to be reusable. You can use it on multiple pages.
Oh, that's right. There's an alt attribute by default.
Right then, it's like, what's your alt attribute? And I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to use this yet. I'm going to use it in multiple places. My alt attribute could change, but look, I think this is masterclass, if that's even a term, masterclass alt attribute writing. The fact that you wrote something is you're already ahead of the game based on what's out there.
So if you would actually so my first one where I said C-3PO and R2-D2 on Tatooine from Star Wars is a description that describes possibly almost all of these. And R2-D2 is not golden colored.
Right. Yeah, but I think you're still good.
Okay, so what's the fourth quadrant?
So the last one is, imagine this is a page about C-3PO and R2-D2, and you've got this image here, and all the text around it is about C-3PO and R2-D2. There's a good chance that this image here is kind of redundant.
It might,
especially if it's presented exactly like this. Maybe it's a caption or a heading right above it.
So I would agree with you on that. However, if there's more than one image on there, then all of a sudden those two characters in their particular location or environment matters.
Right.
C-3PO and R2-D2 on Tatooine, C-3PO and R2-D2 on the Death Star, C-3PO and R2-D2 with Luke.
There was more characters.
That type of thing.
Yeah,
okay.
What's the difference between them? Right.
All right.
Exactly.
All of this in the service of making the content itself more inclusive. So if somebody is sight impaired and can't see these, it's giving them a better experience reading the content.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. So there's also a great guide that JJ, one of our coworkers, showed us very recently.
PM extraordinaire.
He is PM extraordinaire. This comes from the W3C, and this is the alt description decision tree, and it tells you basically you kind of go through this, and it tells you if you should have an alt attribute and what you should write. And by the way, you should always have an alt attribute. It's just a matter, if it should be empty, because if it's missing, a screen reader will actually read the file name, which is awful.
So we will make sure that this link and all the links that are relevant to this talk will be in the description.
Yeah.
But so that's actually a good point, because as a point of fact, I like making sure that the image names are relevant to the context of the image. Mm-hmm. So that other image, I would be C3PO - and - R2D2.jpg.
Right.
However, some people don't do that, or maybe they grabbed it from Google and are using it. And it is like, oh, this is a common one. DSC 0001259.
That's from
right?
the camera, right?
Which is from a Sony camera, right?
Okay,
so
yeah.
and nobody changes it.
Right.
So imagine listening to that and saying image DSC 001. It's like, oh, that gives me the hives. It's ridiculous. Right? So
okay, so if I go through this super briefly, it basically says, does the image contain text?
Right.
If yes, if is that text already nearby, then keep it empty. But if it isn't there,
it's really sour.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So if you've got text in the image, make the alt attribute the text of that image, unless here's your conditions.
Right. But like, yeah, in terms of reading this, read the question, answer yes or no.
Yeah.
And then just drop down to the next one. Answer yes or no, drop down to the next one, yes or no. And that'll kind of help you through.
There's another exception that they call out here, and that's functional images. So functional images are an image that are wrapped by a link or button. So here the alt attribute actually has to serve two goals. It's going to describe the image. So let's say it's like a logo in your nav bar.
Right.
But it's also going to describe what happens when you click it. So it'll take you, let's say, for example, going back to Entenmann's, if we had the Entenmann's logo at the top, it would say Entenmann's home, so that you would know that that's the Entenmann's image, but clicking it will take you to the home page.
Okay. So don't really do too much. Like 10 years ago, you were wrapping A tags around button images all the time, right?
Right.
We don't really do that anymore. So it's really just it's wrapping around like an image of somebody's face going to a bio, right?
Sure.
Or like you said, a homepage.
Another good example is, let's say you have, and I will actually show you this. Let's go here. So here's Entenmann's, right? This could be the Entenmann's logo, and you would call it just Entenmann's. And then as a functional image here, this would be Entenmann's home. And here's the other really good example is that search button
icon. There you go.
Right. So the alt attribute is not magnifying glass, which I've seen a million times.
That's right. Now, right. So that would actually, well,
right.
That's an interface item. So that would be part of the build. But, but yeah. So right. Somebody would say mag glass,
right,
or magnifying glass,
right.
But so that's interesting too, because magnifying glass is a good example, because those are used differently depending on where they're being used. They could be used for enlarge,
right.
investigate, go deeper, search, right? They use them for enhance. They use them for all. It's just same thing for all sorts of things. So
tennis,
in particular, though, for that, you've got search text. That is the label for that field that's positioned there, and then what would we do? Search now.
Yeah, or search. Yeah, go. Enter.
Okay. All right.
Something. Submit.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
I have a question. How many people we think are running out right now, getting chocolate frosted donuts, or the iced raspberry Danish?
Rich frosted donuts. Yes. So I was going to also mention how long alt attributes should be. I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
I've asked that question a lot. So we test with a lot of screen readers, and we found out that the JAWS screen reader by Freedom Scientific actually breaks up an alt attribute into pieces of 125 characters. So it will stop mid-word if it's 125 characters.
Why does it? What?
It's just bite size. It doesn't want to speak forever. It does that a lot. It will break.
We actually experienced that in one of the. I can't remember that. All right.
So
full stop.
Yeah.
Keep your alt text less than 100 characters. Keep it short.
Yeah, 125 characters.
Right, but if you get in that, like
100
between 100 and 125, that's a lot.
It is
actually.
A lot. Yeah.
So
yeah. And if you're doing that, it's probably because you have lots of text in your images, and you probably shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Like rules,
or banners,
or banners, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. So like there's tons of promotions that happen on this Intimate site and the Little Byte site. So when they do these promotions, there's usually copy. It's in those images. It's stylized. It's it's banner style copy. So it's important to make sure that copy that's in the image, which is flat pixel based content, impossible for a screen reader to read. Yeah. Only possible for someone who can see to be able to read. It's important that content is actually in the alt tag.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep, exactly.
Especially if it's something like a promotion. Like even if you want to say like enter now, it's not a separate element. It's actually part of the image. You want to make sure that's there.
And the one I've seen a lot is the disclaimer text for a promotion, for example. There's lots of words there. You should probably make that text, but if you have to, that's probably essential to be part of that alt attribute, right? Because it's
but if that's too long, where does that go?
Long descriptions.
See how I set you up there?
So here's another example, a chart. This could be an image, and it could be very hard to describe this thing with less than 100 characters or less than 125 characters. So you got a couple options. You have a different attribute altogether. So it's the long description attribute, long DESC.
One word.
And one word. And you've got two options with it. You can point to a page like it is here. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can say, go check out this page, and this page is going to have the description.
So wait, how does that come up with the screen reader?
It's going to you're going to have to actually go to that page. It will give you the option to go
really?
to that page. Yeah.
I just learned something new.
Yeah. And this is old school HTML too. That attribute has been around.
I wonder if I knew this and just forgot it.
That probably is. So don't put text in that attribute. You're putting a document in there, and then
always.
Yes, you're not going to fill the long description.
Oh, it's always going to be
characters.
An external link.
Yeah, it's always external link. Well, actually, there's another way to use it too. You could point it to the same page. So I have here, long description is...
I got in front of my glasses to read this.
You see that is an ID of an element on the page.
Yep.
Easy enough.
Okay. So if you're not seeing this, it's just a hash.
Right.
So just as if you were linking down to an anchor on the page, it's the same concept.
Yep.
This is really similar to how... This is basically a modal.
Yes.
That you're not seeing,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
It's just going to read it. That's cool.
But it could also be a caption somewhere else that even sighted users see, or like a table somewhere else on the page that would be benefit to sighted users.
You mentioned caption.
Yeah.
You could also use Fig and Fig caption too if you wanted. Like for this, technically you can consider this a figure and then use Fig caption.
Yep.
And you could probably just not display it.
You could, yeah.
Right, but the screen reader would still read it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You could also use ARIA labels. But yeah, you want to keep them short.